When you persevere on something in the way that we did, sooner or later, I think the roads open up somehow, and they did for me. This is something that when I look back, I say, oh my goodness, how fortunate have I been throughout. And that's why I keep saying I count my blessings every day, because things just fell into place. All of a sudden we see lights, bright lights, and a big roar of engines. And Aldo and I looked at each other, and we didn't say anything. We just booked. We followed the sound. And there was at the local fairgrounds at the edge of town where they had these modified stock cars. And we just peeked through the fence there and so forth. And we said, well, they didn't look like Formula One cars, but the thing that,
American Formula One.
but the thing that, we looked at each other and said, this is doable,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
and that's when a lot of things started going on. You know what? Maybe America will be just fine.
I can tell you that's why that race is so sweet, because every single car, all 33 cars and drivers and teams that are there, all took their best shot at it. So if you won on that day, you beat everybody with their best car, their best engine, their best driver, their best crew chief. Like everything you could stack the deck in your favor, you do for that race. And if you come out on top on that, it's a big deal. The Super Bowl or the World Series are big, but you don't see the players having to do a parade before those things, and the level of interviews and access and autograph sessions before having to perform at their highest level on the biggest stage for their sport.
The folks in Long Beach, they were so kind recently, right? And they made you sort of the Grand Marshal along with, was it Al Unser? Is that?
Junior, yes.
Yeah. What did that mean to you to be back at Long Beach and to be named as the Grand Marshal?
Well, a great deal indeed, because the event was very meaningful to myself, and actually as a family with my son Michael as well. Throughout our career, I was there for the very first race. In fact, I was on pole, for the very first race in 1975. And I had been there 49 years. The only one I missed in 1983 because I was out of Formula One, and IndyCar did not participate there. And then when Formula One ceased being there, I won the next race there, the first race for IndyCars in '84, and a couple more after that. But the bottom line is my son Michael, who had a total of 42 IndyCar wins, top 5 in the series, he won his very first IndyCar race there.
That's right.
1986, and I think it was 86. And then his last race in 2002. So as you can see, bookends for him, but also so much, to be obviously thankful for those opportunities, but also wonderful results for us, as you can imagine.
Absolutely. What's life like for you these days? I know we're going to talk about a lot of subjects, including your involvement with the Cadillac team that I want to get into later. But what is life like for Mario Andretti?
Life is good. Life is busy. People say, "Oh, how's your retirement?" I have not retired.
Which retirement?
Which retirement? And I said this many times, and I mean it. And so when I retire, they'll put me in a box. That's it. So, things are good. I mean, I'm knocking on wood, health-wise, everything is good. So I got quite a few, I got a lot of things on my plate. And again, these are all the things that I enjoy doing. And for me to stay busy in areas where where I feel I belong, that's all good. I have that choice and those opportunities. And that means a great deal. Again, look forward to every day.
Yeah. You once said that all you needed to live happily, the only thing that made you happy was to drive a race car. And I think probably the only thing that makes you happy today is being around race cars. Is that accurate?
You got it. Yeah, indeed. I mean, it's my life. I mean, it's what really. How could I say? What what was the most important thing in my professional life? And the satisfaction, the fulfillment that I derive from it is something that I could have never gotten doing anything else. And the fact that as a family, we have continued my kids, and actually there are four. I mean, four on each side. I have a twin. I had a twin brother, Aldo. Unfortunately, passed away. But Aldo and I, between Aldo and I, there are 8 race drivers in the Andretti family. So
that's crazy. That's crazy.
Anytime we get together for dinner, I guess you can imagine where the conversation goes.
You were 14 years old when you first saw the Italian Grand Prix with Aldo. Do I have that correct?
Indeed.
And that was the dream, as you said, was complete. You knew exactly that there was going to be no plan B. 14 years old, living in Italy, seeing the Italian Grand Prix.
Indeed. That's when the mold was cast.
Yes, and never broken.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, at that point, it was the impossible dream in every way, for all the reasons that we can go. But we never, as I said, and I said it, and I repeat it, like you said, never had a plan B, regardless the fact that there was no, direction or anything that would warrant thinking those terms. But when you persevere on something in the way that we did, sooner or later, I think the roads open up somehow, and they did for me. This is something that when I look back, I say, oh my goodness, how fortunate have I been throughout. And that's why I keep saying I count my blessings every day, because things just fell into place.
Yeah, an American dream, Mario, and
Indeed.
An American dream that was born in Italy. And you and I talked off air a little bit about where your family originally came from, and I want to talk for a second about. Let's take me back to Lucca in Tuscany, and take me back to living in Italy, being born in Italy, and being in a refugee camp, and then landing in Nazareth in June of 1955, ultimately. Tell me a little bit about life growing up in Italy and about the pursuit of the American dream. It all started there in Lucca.
Well, indeed. Yeah, obviously, when we arrived in Lucca, I was 7 years old, going on 8 years of age. And we were there until age 15, went to school there. And again, life was okay. I always said as kids, my dad, my parents always provided for us. We were never cold. We were never hungry. We went to the best schools. So from that standpoint, there are no complaints, but there was no future like for someone like my dad at that moment, the way things were in Europe, post-war, as we all know. And having a close relative on my mother's side who had immigrated many years before.
Your uncle in 1909.
Yeah, Uncle Tony. Yeah, Tony Benvenue. We kept correspondence with him. We did, and he suggested at one point to my dad, he said, which was about 1952. He said, Gigi, why don't you apply for a visa and come to the States? I will guarantee whatever guarantees I have to make. to the family, and my dad did. He did that. He applied for visas. He almost forgot about it. I said this all the time. But 3 years later, the visas come through, and we were invited to go to Geneva to the consul, American Consul General, and from there the visas were approved. And Dad says, "Well, now we're going to America for maybe 5 years and come back."
You actually had the tickets to go back, didn't you?
Well, no, not really. No, we just one way. We had that one-way tickets.
Oh, but you were going to go back in 5 years.
It was just a matter of conversation. I think.
Okay.
I think he said that just to alleviate the blow, so to speak. Like, was it a blow to us, as kids? My sister, Ana Maria, was 6 years older than us. So she was obviously much more aware of what was going on. But she was very positive, very positive. She says, I said, "Oh, kids, this is wonderful. This is a great opportunity, blah, 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 blah." So the only thing that I was concerned about, Aldo and I were concerned about racing. I said, we wanted to get into Formula One, blah, blah, blah. And maybe we start in motorcycles. And, we didn't know the American scene except for 1951, there was this movie, To Please a Lady, with Clark Gable, Barbara Stanwyck, and the title was To Please a Lady, but the movie played in Italy, and the title was Indianapolis.
Oh.
I had no idea what in the world Indianapolis. I thought, what was it, Napoli or something, and I went to see the movie, and then there I saw some of the American racing, not just the Indianapolis 500, but the dirt track racing.
Sure.
Which obviously it was part of the story. And so we said, well, that's going to be interesting. That's something different. And so we figured, well, there's going to be some racing. And Lord and behold, as we arrived here to these shores in June 15, 1955, it was on a Thursday. And on a Sunday evening, we were just hanging out, after dinner and so forth. And, June, long day. And in the background, all of a sudden we see lights, bright lights, and a big roar of engines. And Aldo and I looked at each other, and we didn't say anything. We just booked. We followed the sound. And there was at the local fairgrounds at the edge of town where they had these modified stock cars. And we just peeked through the fence there and so forth. And we said, well, they didn't look like Formula One cars, but the thing that,
American Formula One.
but the thing that, we looked at each other and said, this is doable,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
and that's when a lot of things started going on. You know what? Maybe America will be just fine.
You were 15 years old, correct?
Yeah, indeed.
2 years later, you and Aldo, you're building your own cars to race there. You're going 130 miles an hour, and you had to lie about how old you were because you had to be 21, right?
Had to be 21 to be legally racing in those days, insurance and all that sort of thing. And, as you said, we started building a car in 57. And we figured by the time we were 21, we had plenty of time. No, the car was finished when we were in 59. And we said, we're not going to wait 2 years. And so we befriended the local editor of the Nazareth Keep, the newspaper here, which actually still, Nazareth Keep is still a weekly paper here.
Still to this day.
To this day. Anyway, and Les Young was his name. He said, Les, do you think you can do something with the birth date on our license? he did a pretty good job. And that's really what we went by. And then we actually, we fibbed a little bit. We said that, to add to the fact that, maybe we look too young, but so we used to race in Italy, Formula Junior, and which was popular, by the way, Formula Junior, and it was just another, one of those, series that give opportunities outside of go-karts, to be in a proper race car. Anyway, and we were fibbing about that, of course, but we played the part because Aldo and I, we invested in two Sala Sport racing uniforms from Italy, and nobody was wearing racing uniforms in those days, so we showed up and everybody, oh wow, these kids, I mean, oh wow, so nobody asked the question, whether, okay, you guys don't look old enough, old enough to do it, but and the best part here is, believe it or not, Jason, one car, one helmet, two drivers, and we didn't decide until that day of the race who was going to drive the first race.
Really? Really? I've not heard that part of the story.
We tossed a coin.
Okay.
And Aldo won the toss, and I was kind of relieved, actually.
Really?
So, and he entered the heat, and he won the heat race, qualifying heat race, and because of the handicapping system, there was no background, so we had to start last on everything. There was no, there was no data, on everything, so we had to start last. So he started last in the heat race, won the heat, and then started last in the feature, and he won the feature. I couldn't believe him just passing cars, and obviously it's testimony that we had some good buddies there that helped us build this car. And we bought information from one of the top NASCAR teams that actually was going out of business because the Hudson factory had pulled out of racing officially, and so we bought all the information for the setups, and we did obviously a lot better job than we ever thought, and it was a different car because here they were running the different shaped cars and so forth, and we come out with this 48 Hudson, and all of a sudden we're just again. So as you can see, a lot of things just started falling.
Wow. When was the really big break for you? When you knew that you could take things to the next level? Well,
there were several steps. That where we started, just like going to school. Let's take that first grade type of thing. And my objective was always to get into open wheel single seaters, which is obviously the most refined part of the sport. And so by the time I was, I drove for 2 years, our own car in 59 and 60. And then, and it's a long story, Aldo got hurt and everything else, but Aldo kept driving that. But I felt that I needed to get into midgets. And so we bought, actually, I talked to my future father-in-law to invest in a midget, a 3/4 midget for me. And we bought one of the top 3/4 midgets, actually, that was owned by the president of the club of the American, 3/4 midget association, Jack Dowie. And it was a famous deuce that Bobby Marshman, a famous name locally, that drove. Anyway, and that was for indoor racing in the winter, and it was a place where some of the owners of full-size mitts were doing a lot of scouting for drivers, and one winter, 1961. I won the biggest race for that winter, which was in Teaneck, New Jersey, the 100-lapper. And guess who finished second to me? One of the greatest, Len Duncan, one of the greatest midget car drivers if you look in the history.
Yep.
And so that sort of piqued the curiosity of two individuals from Mapleville, New Jersey, the Mateka brothers, and they're actually one of the driver was was killed, the year before. The guy by the name of Carpenter, and so they offered me a ride in the full-size midget, in which again progressing, and they had now won a race, an ARDC race, since they've been competing, and I won in fact, then 2 years later, I won 3 races in one day, 3 features, and Labor Day, which was another plateau that that really launched me to the next phase. It was Labor Day 1963. There was a afternoon race in Flemington, New Jersey. I won the heat race, the match race, the feature, and later that evening there was another event at Hatfield, Pennsylvania, about 150 miles away, and maybe less. And there I won the same thing, that heat race and match race and feature. But then there was another feature to be run because it was a rained out feature that needed to be rerun. So I ran the third feature that day. I won that, and that really propelled me, I think, to the next level, to the sprint cars, but sprint cars on the national level, and got me a ride with the Rufus Gray from Indianapolis, and there again, later on, I won the 100-lapper in Salem, Indiana, against the Foyts, the Parnelli Jones, all the top announcers, all the top drivers, and that got me a ride in Champ Cars, which is the maximum, the top level for the following year. So it was just moments like that all of a sudden were that meaningful for me to earn my way to the next grade, to the next level. And for me, it was all about try to win something wherever I was. I didn't want to repeat third grade. I wanted to move on.
Right.
Yeah. And until I got to the top level, and then then go from there. And somehow there were moments like that really were that meaningful that they just happened at the right time. I'll say this: the sport in those years, was very cruel, in the sense that the safety aspect was somewhat non-existent compared to what we have today, for sure. And some of the advantages that I got was through somebody else's misfortunes, just other individuals, getting hurt or worse. But I was there to take over, and again, I could not have hoped for anything, no better opportunities than that. And some of it was sad because of the misfortune of others, but I was there to take advantage.
Congratulations are in order. You completed the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge season with a 1-2 finish at Road Atlanta in October. What were your thoughts on the year? How did you think that the year finished out?
It's interesting. We've had such a tremendous run of success in the Michelin Pilot Challenge, where we've won, I think, 5 consecutive driver championships, 4 consecutive manufacturer championships coming into last season. And last year we won the manufacturer championship for a fifth consecutive year, but we just missed out on the driver championship. We finished second and third in the drivers championship and the team championship. So, it was a little bit weird for us because you become accustomed to a certain level of success, but I think also really good for us. Sometimes, you need that challenge put in front of you to really motivate you and the team, the drivers. I know we're coming out swinging this year and looking to just raise our level in every area.
What surprised you about the year?
I don't think I was really surprised too much by anything. I think, the Audi JDC team that ended up lifting the championship from us had been very, very strong, was in a position a year ago to win it going in the last race. So we knew that was going to be our main competitor, and that proved to be true. They came out very strong early in the season, won a bunch of races, and really got us on our back foot. And we did close towards the end of the year, but just ran out of time. So, like I said, I hate to lose more than anything, but I want to also look at it as we didn't lose. We had an opportunity here to focus more and try to make ourselves better as a team.
It's amazing to me when I look at your own career and I think about where we are today, and time flying as it does, like a race car. Almost 2 decades that you've been involved as an owner since retiring from racing. Can you believe how fast it's all gone?
It is hard for me to believe because it does seem like just yesterday that I was throwing the helmet on and getting out there myself. So it does go by quickly, not just in terms of time, but I think about, our youngest son who's now in high school, who never saw me race. He was basically born at the end of my driving career. And so he only knows me as dad and race car team owner. Of course, our 2 older kids remember me driving. So, it's great. I feel really, really fortunate. As I said, like, I grew up as a kid wanting to be a race car driver. I got to live out that dream. I never thought I wanted to be a team owner until really the time was coming to an end in my driving career. And suddenly, that became really appealing. And I'm so glad I took that leap because it's been hugely rewarding. And, I still love the sport, and I get to compete in it in a different way and really share those experiences now with a great group of people that we've assembled at Bryan Herta Autosport, and built quite a strong success record to date.
It's also amazing to me, Bryan, that next year will be a decade since you won the Indy 500 with when you partnered with Michael Andretti in a car that was driven by rookie Alexander Rossi. That is hard to imagine that was pretty much 10 years ago.
I know, this sport's relentless, and that it keeps coming at you, right? There's always another race, and there's always the next thing to prepare for. And, when you say things like that, it's funny because I never sit back and reflect or think backwards like that until somebody points it out. And then you realize, like, holy moly, that was a long time ago, and a lot has happened since then.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about the Indy season to come. And soon enough, we will be in St. Petersburg. It will be upon us. What is it that you're looking for as you prepare this off season for next season in the NTT IndyCar series?
Well, in my role with Andretti Autosport, I think the thing that, I felt within the team at the end of last year is we were really coming on strong. We'd been strong on street courses and in certain areas for several years in the series, and won races in those particular types of races. But at the end of the season, seeing how competitive we were on ovals, short ovals, super speedway, seeing Colton get that win at Nashville and get his first oval win. There's just a general sense of, I don't want to say confidence, but optimism that we're on a good trajectory, and we've got to keep working hard, but there's a lot of good things that are possible for us this coming year in IndyCar.
And the 500 itself, we've talked to so many drivers on this program about how elusive and alluring the Indy 500 is at many different levels. You started in it 5 times, the last time in '06, 3 top 10 finishes, third in '05. You know what it's like there. Give our listeners a sense of how the year really, especially the beginning of the year, builds to May.
It's the elephant in the room every single day, and when we're racing in St. Petersburg or we're racing in Birmingham, Alabama, and Barber, we still have kind of one eye on that race because it is the big one. It's the one that everybody wants to win. So, we do put a lot of effort into it. A lot of our development, wind tunnel time, everything goes into really trying to be at our very best. But having been part of 2 winning efforts there, and I can tell you that's why that race is so sweet, because every single car, all 33 cars and drivers and teams that are there, all took their best shot at it. So if you won on that day, you beat everybody with their best car, their best engine, their best driver, their best crew chief, like everything you could stack the deck in your favor, you do for that race. And if you come out on top on that, it's a big deal.
And everybody who's been on this program has described, I want to put your driver helmet on here for a minute, but has described how arduous and difficult it is from a driver's perspective. Give me the driver's perspective, give me the owner's perspective or the strategist's perspective.
Yeah, from a driver's standpoint, it's brutal. It's a mentally challenging. We call it the month of May. It's really just a couple weeks now, but it feels like a year. And the way it builds, that every day you practice, and then the weather changes, and you think you're happy with your car, and suddenly you're not anymore. And as you're building up through the end of the first week, heading into qualifying, you start trimming the car out and putting it really more and more and more on edge, to the point that when we go out and do these qualifying runs, we're relying almost completely on the grip from the tires, to the point that you couldn't do a second run on a set of tires. They just don't have enough grip to hold the car to the track. So those are some harrowing laps for the drivers. You're really holding on the white knuckle moment, getting through qualifying. And then after you've kind of run that gauntlet, now you got to get ready to race. And the preparation for that, and the greatest spectacle in racing, the biggest single day sporting event, all that goes into that. There are hundreds of thousands of people there, and the pomp and circumstance, and you get kind of torn into interviews, and then there's parades and public drivers meetings, and it's really a meat grinder for the drivers. And to try and keep your head on straight, keep focused, it's unique in sports. I mean, the Super Bowl or the World Series are big, but you don't see the players having to do a parade before those things, and the level of interviews and access and autograph sessions before having to perform at their highest level on the biggest stage for their sport. So I think as a driver, remember those things a lot, and still to this day have just so much respect for all the drivers because of the unique challenge of that place, and the mental distractions and things that it throws at you, and you have to close all that stuff out.
It's crazy. You were born in the shadow of General Motors Tech Center, Warren, Michigan. Were you always going to be a car guy?
So I guess I was, but not because I was born right there. It wasn't until we moved to Connecticut when I was 6, and we had just moved into this neighborhood, and we didn't know anybody, and a neighbor invited us to go to the local Saturday night racetrack. It was in Danbury, Connecticut. They raced open wheel modifies, and my dad took me along, and that was my first exposure to racing in person, and it just hit me right away. And since then, I don't remember ever wanting to do anything else. I used to dress up as a race car driver every year for Halloween. We get a track suit and all with sew patches on it, and I carry a helmet around to collect my candy in. So I was committed. Except one year I was a stormtrooper. Star Wars got me one year, but every other year I was a race car driver. So I never wanted to do anything else. And like, that's, I think, one of the things that I feel very lucky and is unique about, my life is, I kind of had this dream as a 6-year-old kid. Not many people get to do the thing that they dreamed of doing when they were 6. And so, again, I think fortunate or lucky or whatever are words that I always ascribe to the things I've been able to do in my life.
And you really got your starter, had your first real success in Barber Formula Fords, right? And the Barber Saab Pro Series. Is that sort of where it all started?
Well, even before that, I wanted to race go-karts when I was young.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad wasn't particularly mechanically inclined. He was a commercial real estate guy, so he was hesitant for a while. He bought me a BMX bike, and I raced BMX bikes until I was 12. And then he thought that would, solve the problem, but it didn't. And when I was 12, I finally wore him down, and we bought a go-kart and started racing go-karts. And, I was lucky, started winning races. And, by the time I was then 18, a friend of the family sent me to this Skip Barber. It was like a introductory course. It was like a couple hours out at Riverside International Raceway, where you basically go out and they just show you the cars and they let you drive it behind an instructor for a couple laps. But, then they set the hook at the end of it and say, hey, would you like to do more of this? And of course I would. And that is really through the Skip Barber program and then their race series and winning that I was able to kind of start moving up the ladder, because we were complete outsiders to the sport. We didn't know anything about it. We didn't know how you got into it. We didn't know how you really followed that dream. But by that time, we were living in California, and my dad and I used to go to the Long Beach Grand Prix every year, and that became the dream, was to race at the Long Beach Grand Prix. And really, that's what led me to IndyCar. It wasn't that I wanted to be in IndyCars to race at Long Beach. I wanted to be in IndyCars because that's what you had to race to be in the big race at Long Beach. I didn't know about the Indy 500 or all the other races until much later on.
And what was the first big break that you remember after that?
Well, the sport is tough. It takes a lot of money to get through just the junior formula. It's big investment. So families make big sacrifices. My family made big financial sacrifices to support my career, but also many others helped me along the way. And so I had a lot of, let's say, small and medium breaks early on, where just family, friends, people who, saw the passion, determination, the dream, and wanted to help be part of that with me, helped me along the way. But then the big break came after I won the Indy Lights Championship, partway into the start of the 1994 IndyCar season. Excuse me. And AJ Foyt called me out of the blue and said, Bryan, this is AJ Foyt. And I didn't believe him. I really thought it was my friends messing with me. Who had AJ Foyt calling you out of the blue on your bingo card, when you're early 20s kid. But he did. And he offered me the chance to come drive for him in 1994 at the Indianapolis 500. So that was my first IndyCar race. That was my big break. AJ gave it to me, which is sort of a fairy tale way to break in sport, in the top level.
That month you turned 24 years old.
I turned 24 that year, which I was young back then. Nowadays these kids are so much more prepared and they come in such an earlier age. But back then I was still the young kid. I was 23 when I started and turned 24 during that month of May. So, I think I always look back, and AJ Foyt, was the guy. Even after I'd won the Indy Lights Championship, I didn't have a ride. I hadn't found a way to move up into IndyCar. And AJ was the one that took a chance on me and gave me my big break.
Wow. What was that like? You're sitting at the starting, you're in the driver's parade. You're, the green flag drops. You're 24 years old. You're driving for AJ Foyt. You're at the Indianapolis 500. I mean, good gracious.
Well, the drinking through a fire hose analogy works. You go from the longest race I'd ever done was Indy Lights, was 75 miles. And you go from that into the biggest race in the world and everything that goes with that. I hadn't even done an IndyCar race. I had no idea what to expect, what I was getting into. As a matter of fact, when AJ called and gave me the opportunity, I was nervous whether Indy was the right place to start. Like that's a big ask for a rookie driver to try and learn on the biggest stage. I actually called two guys. I called Bobby Rahal and I called Mario Andretti, guys who I'd met when I was racing Indy Lights and who obviously I had a ton of respect for. And I said, look, here's the opportunity. Is this crazy? Should I do this? And both of them said, look, you can't choose when your chance comes. You just have to take it and make the most of it. And, Mario especially, he said, look, I'll tell you, like I was telling Mike or Jeff, and he just kind of talked me through the whole thing and made me feel comfortable with, okay, these veteran guys are going to accept me. They understand. They were rookies once. They know what it was like to be where I am on the outside trying to break in. And that was great. And that was actually, ironically, really the start of my relationship with the Andretti family as well, with Mario and then Michael, and a friendship with Michael that extended through the driving years and ended up with me driving for him and then being a partner with him and now my son driving on the Andretti global team. So it's funny when you look back how like one conversation was like the start of something.
And you nailed the top 10 in that first year at being just 24 years old.
Yeah, I finished ninth.
Right.
I don't know how I didn't crash. I tried to crash like 5 times that race. I still remember I was young and dumb and didn't know what I shouldn't be trying to do or couldn't get away with, but somehow I did. And I finished ninth and like I remember like I was disappointed because you just want to do as well as you can and you want to win. And I just come off an Indy Lights season where I'd won almost everything. Not that I expected to go out and win the Indy 500 as a rookie, but I remember like a reporter running up to me in pit lane when I was getting out of the car and said, Bryan, you just finished ninth in your first Indy 500. What does that mean? And I didn't know what to say exactly. I think I said something along the lines of, well, I guess it means 8 guys beat me today. And that's how I felt.
Sure.
And that's how I still feel to this day. That's why I love this sport, is because the competition is pure, and you get a report card every race. You know how
that's right.
You know how you finish. Like so few things in life are like that, but racing, you know exactly how you did.
You end up driving for Bobby and David Letterman. I mean, we've had Bobby in this program. What was that like? I mean, Letterman at one point had even, coined a phrase for you in your driving, Hertamania.
Hertamania. He did. So David's great. He massive fan of the sport. What a unique experience to get to be a part of the team that he was partners on, that get to know him and have a relationship with him. Really, it's sort of the zenith of his career and his fame. He was the big dog at that time for late night TV. And he was great. Like he would call me once a week, sometimes more, and just talk racing. We never talked about show business, his show. He just wanted to talk about racing, and that was his passion and his love. And he was, a lot of people don't know, this is before the F1 races were live. He would drive at 3 or 4 in the morning from his house to ESPN studios in Bristol, Connecticut, to watch the Formula One races at the studio there live. He was that big a fan. And he would come to as many races as he could, and he was just very, very great to myself, to my wife, to my family. it was a great time in our lives. Bobby, I had a great time driving on that team. Like I felt like family when I was there. And I remember the first time David invited us to his studio in New York where they filmed The Late Show. And Jeanette and I, my wife, we went and I learned some things. One is he doesn't let anybody that he knows sit in the audience because he didn't want to look up and like recognize or like have him throw him off, I guess. So we sat in the green room, which was really cool because we met all the guests right before they were about to go out and see all that. And then after the show was finished, after they finished filming, we came out, we sat and talked with David, got to take some pictures at the desk. And I remember, it's funny, I said, David, hey, how about a picture of Jeanette and I? And he said, yeah, no problem. And I handed him the camera and he just kind of looked at me and then he smiled and laughed. So we didn't take a picture with David that day, but I have a picture. I like it because the irony of it, I have a picture of my wife and I taken by David Letterman, but we're the only ones that know he took it.